Down here in the bottom left-hand corner of Cloud Kingdom, we have our always purple Terran player from the team Complexity. You may have heard of him. He's QXC. And his opponent here in the upper right-hand corner from NV, the very best Australian players, our blue Zerg player, Moonglade.
An exciting map to have this first match on. QXC, as with most Terrans, a big fan of Cloud Kingdom, of course. It's a nice, comfortable map for Terrans. It's a map where you can easily do kind of crazy maneuvers, go for things like fast thirds and a variety of different tech routes. Drops, of course, are extremely viable here. If you look at between the main and the third, you got a lot of fun options to dabble with there. But let's, looking at these players we've got here, QXC, commonly hailed as a very intelligent, strategic player who has a very deep understanding of the game. And Moonglade just seems to be this player who is inherently good at competitive video games. I mean, take a look at them in the past. This guy has been a pro Warcraft 3 player, pro Counter-Strike, and even in a variety of games. Yeah, he played Counter-Strike competitively. I mean, it's just like in his blood.
There seem to be those guys out there like Moonglade who just, you throw any video game at them and they always find a way to be good at it. So QXC also, you mentioned he has a very deep understanding of the game. He's also can be a very aggressive player at times. He was a guy who in the beta was pioneering some kind of ridiculous over-the-top strategies. He still is widely known for his love of Reapers and can bust those out. But it's been a very long time since I've seen Reaper play in TVZ, and it used to be, for a while there, was getting to be all the rage, but now everyone's on a pretty normal path of, well, it looks like it's going to be a command center first, and I love the placement of multiple SCVs here. I'm probably going to follow that up with some Hellions and maybe a Banshee or two afterwards.
Yeah, I want to go back at that Reaper comment you made about how it's kind of been phasing out, but it was like this really cool strategy because it wasn't nearly as invested as the 2-racks, but you could still, if you got away with the bunker, absolutely obliterate something like an expansion or something of that nature. But now players have just gotten so good at scouting any sort of bunker play or anything like that. It really is just pretty unidirectional now, and that's never a good strategy to have in general. It's always nice when your strategies can branch, We saw, speaking of that, unidirectional strategies, back when Hyun played Major in IPL Fight Club. Major, of course, is a player who was known for taking Korean builds, perfecting them, and just banging them out over and over and over and over and over again. Yeah. And that's what he did against Hyun. They went 6 games. He took one of them, but he did the same build, exact same build, 6 times in a row. No, that's definitely a great point because it has so many different opportunities to, sometimes he went gas, for instance, and went for the bailing all-in style of thing, but other times it was just like, no, I'm actually just going to... Yeah. We didn't see him pull us drones, but, that's always possible, too.
Hyun was able... Yeah, he was able to adapt, and that's the thing. You have to be able to adapt. Major, unfortunately, lost the set pretty convincingly, doing the same thing every time, despite his success against him in TSL 4.
So Moonglade here, guys, with his early hatchery, is now just getting... we've been seeing more of this, too. People haven't been transferring drones as often. They're finding that it's actually, you don't have to worry about the pressure as much, I guess. And actually, I'm curious is your thoughts on the reasoning behind this, because really it has taken quite a shift with many players that now they just send the drones as they pop out to the natural instead.
Well, it seems like a lot of Terran players are finding that if they play greedier at the beginning, that they have a lot better chance to survive through the mid and eventually end game, because you have a lot of Zerg players that have been focusing on tech, going to very early tier 3, and just a small group of Marines and Vikings really isn't going to do it for you. We saw a good example of this in Thorzane versus Slivko in the EU World Championships last week. Thorzane sat back and was like, all right, you're not going to do anything, you're going to transfer drones, that's fine, I'll drop every once in a while, but I'm going to play for the super late game Raven Ghost Army. And it worked out really well, and that's kind of indicative of what we're seeing out of a lot of Terran players, is they want to answer the Zerg style with just a lot of greed on their own.
So QXC now moving out across the map, guys, with his first few Marines, and he's just making sure he has a little bit of map presence. Notice how he grabs his Onaga Tower and then turns around. He doesn't want to be throwing away units idly, but he wants to make sure that Moonglade isn't in complete control of the map at the current time. So, and it looks like from QXC's perspective, we do see he's going for the reactor and Hellions. Looks like he's got a starport on the way as well. And on the other side of things, Moonglade is just grabbing his 3rd and 4th gas at his natural, and his 1st and his 2nd in his main. So he's going to be really ramping things up here, and we see he's doing it around the 36 supply mark, which does make me think we may be seeing some upgrade-intensive play. I know that this is really popular in a lot of builds to get the 36 gases when you go for upgrades, but we'll have to wait and see.
Moonglade just went for something that had actually fallen a little bit out of favor recently. Commonly still see 4 queen builds out of players as they delay that gas and make sure they have good map presence with queens. The 6 6-queen build, which we just saw out of Moonglade, was tinkered with for a while, saw some play in GSL, but then was largely discarded in favor of a 4-queen build into a 5-queen as a third hatch goes down. So a little interesting to see Moonglade still investing back into those, and that's the reason why he took all 4 gases at once and is trying to power into layer at the moment.
So it looks like he's getting some spine crawlers as well. With the creep spread that he's going to have, you know, with those 6 queens very quickly spreading through his third, would not be surprised to see those moved in order to be able to secure a third, because he just does have so many of those queens. I would like to see him move away from the creep tumors, though. I'm ready for those aliens to come in and just take advantage of the fact that they're splash. But yeah, the double Evo chambers wrapping up just now. There we go, starting up the +1/+1 upgrades.
Yeah, +1/+1 coming up. Also has that Baneling Nest, has the Zergling Speedwell on the way. So Moonglade's hitting all of his upgrades. And I mentioned before that a lot of Zerg players have been favoring going for a little bit more tech, a little bit fewer bases. It was always conventional wisdom that you have to stay bases up on your Terran opponent if you're a Zerg. And while that's still helpful, it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be true with the way that players have been aggressively going after tech. Speaking of that, layer tech's now done. The macro hatch is on the way. And Moonglade really hasn't made a concerted effort to get out there and try and stop this, or try and put down a third base yet.
Yeah, it really hasn't, which is a little bit surprising to me. You know, we're approaching the 9-minute mark, definitely a time period. Well, you know what, let's actually compare it instead to QXC's third that's 3/4 of the way done.
It is.
I mean, you don't want to be behind as a Zerg player against the Terran on bases. And that's the situation that Moonglade's going to be here in the near future as his hatchery is just going down.
Yeah, it looks like QXC is going to be able to snag a couple of worker kills. Actually only gets 1, misses a second shot, tried to duck it away a bit too early, but no harm, no foul there. He does his damage and backs away. Hopefully trying to open up a few queens to move away so we could rush up with Hellions, but you know, about the 9.5-minute mark, you expect there to be some drones over at a third base that if you pull units out of the way with you know, a couple of Banshees, you can then move in with a few Hellions and try and do some damage.
And it's not surprising at all to me to see QXC right now going for siege tanks. He realizes my Zerg opponent has gotten an extremely late third, so the possibility of some serious pressure is heavy, but right now these queens are going to be fleeing. That front one is, not going to die as a queen comes in for a very sexy transfuse. The Hellions getting off creep, though, are going to be able to evade these Zerglings effectively enough. However, the queens with that ranged attack are going to force them away.
Yeah, that was a really nice hold from Moonglade. He doesn't take all that much damage at all. Lost a few Zerglings, killed a Banshee, killed a Hellion. No real pressure taken on the hatchery, so he's looking pretty good at the moment. And with 9 Mutalisks coming up, especially against a mech player this early, I could do some serious damage. Usually when you go into mech, you're going to want that huge ring of turrets that wraps around the side of your main, protects your mineral lines, and it's just not in play yet. In fact, the anti-air for QXC is nil. He has 2 Marines. He's making a Thor right now, 2 of them as a matter of fact, but Mutas are already coming out.
Yeah, and that second one started up a lot later. Ooh, Banshee caught out in the middle of the map. A nice small victory there for Moonglade. He's not going to have to worry about that one anymore. He's now going to be swinging into the third. There are no turrets. Remember, the Thor's going to be spawning all the way in the main base as it has just popped out, so it's got a little bit of a walk here. Now it is going to try to defend from the back. Ooh, clumping the Mutas, but yeah, he can even bounce them off of the command center. It looks like no, he wants to get as much SCV damage as possible. Right now, though, the SCV's feeling pretty comfortable under the protection of that Thor are going to return. Looks like a couple Mutas have already gone down, and another one is going to go down to the splash of that Thor.
Yeah, so total 3 Mutas have fallen, but how many workers has he killed? 15, now 16. So he's certainly justified the damage. He's shut down this third base. He's got to watch out for a strong Hellion counterattack here. And there are quite a few drones, so this damage could be answered in kind. Oh, no drones have fallen yet. They've actually made their way away very quickly. The queen's already in position, transfusing each other up. 1 queen falls, but these Hellions are actually going to take some pretty significant damage here. They can't oppose these Mutas in any way, shape, or form, and even though Muta DPS is low, Hellions are still really squishy.
Yeah, extremely squishy, and they clump extremely tight. They are not a unit such as, you know, Thors and Siege Tanks, where the Glaive Worm has a chance of not bouncing around. The Hellions tend to just be like a pack of raving wolves. Yeah, now 4th base on the way for Moonglade, guys. And good Thor count for QXC. He's definitely going to be able to contend with those Mutas pretty easily at this stage, as long as he has them positioned correctly. And it looks like the Mutas are going to come in to try to get some more damage done, but the flock is down to just 6 now. Looks like Moonglade is pretty much just transitioning into roaches.
Now, a mech Terran player like this, you basically want to stay alive. I mean, it's what it amounts to. You don't have to move out right away, and QXC is still amassing a quite large army. Yeah. Moonglade has done an expert job of making sure he doesn't take any damage himself, investing into his upgrades, going up to multiple bases and getting back into his army. He's going to have 45 roaches here momentarily, and those are all going to strike at a pretty nice time. But QXC, with the splash damage from the tanks, although siege mode's not done, does have the potential to do some damage, but oh no, he doesn't have siege mode yet. The roaches are already making their way in.
Oh, Moonglade completely going to be capitalizing on the lack of that siege tech upgrade. Everything is likely to die here for QXC, and he could just lose the game in this very moment. The SCVs need to get around those Thors so they can Infinity to repair them, but no, the SCVs are repairing the Hellions instead, which are not the units that QXC needs to keep alive here. And QXC suddenly plummeting down to a 60 supply deficit. Reinforcements coming from Moonglade. This could be a very, very quick game one for Moonglade, and it is. GG gonna go down, Kevin.
Wow, incredible performance from Moonglade. I've got to say, I never felt that he was out of control of this game. He was always on point. He always had everything working for him, and you know, he kept his bases safe. He was slower to move up to his third, but he did it in such a way that he had queens to defend and never exposed his drones. He deflected counterattacks when necessary. I mean, Moonglade, that was just beautiful.
Yeah, it was so tight. You know, the counterattacks, I think, is the one thing that maybe would be overseen most often there. That, you know, yes, he did damage with the Mutas, and that's all well and good. He traded some Mutas for it, but the fact that he didn't sustain any damage the multiple times we saw those Hellions come in, I mean, did he even lose a drone in that big Hellion counterattack? No, and he ended up killing all of the Hellions.
Yeah, so that's a great performance out of Moonglade to start things off, and a great way to kick off our 2 sets for tonight. Of course, these are all best of 3s, so QXC still has a chance, and it is his pick of map, and he's going to choose Entomb Valley. We are going to run to a commercial break. While you're away, though, make sure you enter into our brand new giveaways that we have going on right now. Our first giveaway is actually an Astro 850 headset. You want to head over to IGN.com/IPL giveaways to enter. We'll actually be giving away 12 items over the course of the coming weeks leading into 2013. So you can find all of the details on that page. The contest is for US only, unfortunately. So, but if you want to enter, IGN.com/IPL giveaways. We're going to run to a commercial break. We'll be back for game number 2.